I audited the Klaviyo accounts of about 120 e-commerce brands in 2024 alone, and about 2 to 3 out of every 20 of them actually had the core 4 automated email flows set up well and performing well. The other like 17-ish out of every 20 had like some major improvements to be made, or they're missing some of these core flows, or some of them are just poorly done. And so what I want to do in this video is I want to show you how in just 14 days you can have the 4 core automated email flows set up for your brand. And yeah, let's dive right into it. All right, let's dive right in. So how to launch the 4 core automated email flows for your ecom brand in just 14 days. Now, we have a little bit of a bonus here with the opt-in form, but these are the 5 main components. You got the opt-in form and then the 4 core flows: welcome series, browse abandonment, abandoned cart, and abandoned checkout. Now, honorable mention to post-purchase. You should also absolutely have post-purchase flows dialed in as well. But right now for this video, we're focused specifically on the pre-purchase flows that are going to convert the most sales for you, like the most quickly. But post-purchase is also extremely important, obviously, because this is a retention marketing system. We want people to keep buying over and over and over. So the post-purchase flows, the first-time buyer series, repeat buyer series, VIP flow, win-back flow, etc., they're all extremely important, but they're just not the focus of this video. Now, for the actual timeline here, so day 1 is going to be your market research. Days 2 to 5 is going to be your copywriting. Days 6 to 12 is going to be your designs and revisions. And then days 13 to 14 is going to be the final tech setup and launch. All right, let's dive in first to market research. All right, so if you've watched videos on the channel before, you know that I kind of preach market research in like the foundation of everything that we do on the market side, on the marketing side of things, because we can't write any copy or like know what we're doing at all unless we have a really good understanding of who it is that we're selling to, what their pain points are, what they're actually looking for, and what kind of like language they use. So for our market research, we really like to use the following sources. So number 1 is website reviews. This is a big one. And then the nice part about this is that you don't have to limit yourself to only your website. You can also go to your competitor's website. So competitor's website reviews. Now, an important caveat there is that you want to make sure that they're still selling to the same target market that you're selling to. If they're selling to an entirely different type of human being, then obviously we don't want to know, like we don't want to study a different type of market. We still want it to be the same type of target market. Now, next thing that I personally am a big fan of this one is Amazon reviews. You can find a lot of Amazon products that just have thousands of reviews from people that want that. So like, for example, I'm going to give you an example. Let's say you're selling an inflammation fighting supplement. There's a ton of inflammation fighting supplements on Amazon that we know the people looking for those are most likely going to be in the same pain point target market that we're selling to as well. So I'll go through all of their reviews out of the thousands of reviews that I can find on Amazon, and I'm going to use those as well. And then we're also going to look at Reddit. Reddit tends to be a really good spot. If you have a target market that just isn't on Reddit, then that could be a little bit of a handicap here, but Reddit tends to be extremely helpful in this case. Now, what you want to do next is put all of this through AI. Now, I like to use Claude, but you can also use ChatGPT, and there are a few others you can use as well. I like to use Claude.ai. That just has been our favorite because it's so much better for writing the copy, which is what we like to turn this into after doing the market research. But Claude AI is great. ChatGPT still gets the job done very well. And I have a lot of other videos going into the specifics on like what you're going to say to AI and stuff. That's not the entire focus of this video, though. The main focus of this video is that this is day 1, right? You want your market research done on day 1. And this should take you might want to block off like 2 to 3 hours for this, all right? You want to get a really dense idea. Now, things you're going to ask AI. So what to ask AI? You want to ask it about, mainly the pain points of your target market. Some other things we like to ask it about are, let me extend this. Other things we like to ask it about are the desires of the target market, fears. We like to ask it about what held people back from buying originally. That's a really big piece of it because then we can handle those objections with our copy and with our flows and just things like that. You want to get like a really good idea of what's going on in these prospects' minds. Now, once you do that, the next part is going to be using that market research and literally analyzing it, because like you as the person that's putting together the copy for these flows, you want to analyze everything that you're getting from AI. Now, the next piece of this is the copywriting. All right, so when you're writing copy, it's essentially like a nice flow over from the market research. Now, for this timeline here, I gave you 3 days from days 2 to 5 to write all the copy. But what I want to do in this video is kind of like map out what, each of those days should include. What to include in each of the flows. So, welcome series, the general structure we like to begin with here is email 1, keep it specific to the offer. That's kind of like the nice structure that we like to stick with. Email 2, and also email 1, you're going to go into like a mission statement of the actual brand and like how you're going to help people. And then that whole below the fold section, we like to keep specifically to product sections. So we'll usually include like the best sellers or like the best categories and highlight those categories and say like, you didn't know what to use your discount on. Here are a few options, just some ideas. Email 2, we like to keep this one specific to your USP. So that's going to be your unique selling proposition. This whole email we like to keep specific to that because these people are new. They just joined the list. We want to set the groundwork as to what we are actually doing to improve their lives. Email 3. So email 3 is going to be social proof heavy. So reviews, testimonials, stories that you might have from certain reviews or transformations that you've been a part of. That's a really big piece of it, and that's what we like to highlight here. And then email 4 and on, so email 4 plus. This is going to be, usually it'll be product specific, or it will be angle / unique mechanism specific. What I mean by that is like we'll highlight a specific product or like highlight it in a valuable way where it's like we're like telling a little bit of a story and then tying the product into that, and then obviously displaying it in a design format. Or we'll keep it to like a specific angle or mechanism where it's like the whole email is about, like how we do XYZ. And then that might include a few promos of a few different products as an example. But this is a nice structure to get started with. You're going to want to write basic copy with that. And AI can help you out a lot with that. But I always, always, always recommend you to be QCing, like quality checking the copy yourself and not just letting AI do all the work. All right, next part of this is browse management flow. So we typically like to keep this to about 2 to 3 emails to begin, but we're going to keep it to 3 right now. And as for the actual strategies, so a really big aspect of what you're going to be handling in the abandonment flows is objections and just educating the customers overall. So browse abandonment flow, people are going to have very different objections compared to what they'll have at cart abandonment or checkout abandonment. So for browse abandonment, we might, because our whole goal here is to get someone who is just looking at a product to go ahead and actually add it to their cart and make that purchase. So email 1, we might just do a reminder of the product plus some social proof. That's one good example of the type of structure you can do. Keep in mind, I'm just giving you all these as an example, but you can kind of structure these however you want. Just keep in mind that we want to make sure that we're always reminding them of the product that they were looking at. We want to give them specific offers if that's something that we want to do, like 10% off this order, 15% off this order, free shipping, whatever it is. We want to handle objections. We want to educate them. So email 2, like one example I like to use all the time is Dr. Squatch, since they're a great D2C brand. Now, if someone's right here just browsing this product, what's like some objections they could have? If all they did was look at the product and they didn't add it to their cart, maybe they couldn't find a scent that they liked. So maybe we're going to focus on a scent. But the main objective here is to focus on a specific objection. And then email 3, obviously it's going to be the same thing. But one thing I like to use in my mind when it comes to browse abandonment is the objections here are most likely to be more broad, just about the products in general, rather than like about the pricing and terms or shipping or something like that. So what you can do is you can use the market research that we already did, to pull up the most common objections that we get. Because if you remember, we went and asked AI to give us what held people back from buying originally. Those are the objections that we might want to handle in browse abandonment. So that's one example of how we might map out that flow. Now, when it comes to the structure of your cart abandonment and checkout abandonment flows, in my opinion, these are usually going to be pretty similar because they're kind of in that same stage, but the objections that the people have might be a little bit different. So like in the later stages of these emails, you might want to focus on pricing and terms. That's one thing that can pop up. And then on the last one, we might want to focus on shipping. That's one thing that could also stop people from moving forward. And then email 1, similar to browse abandonment, we like to just give them a reminder, plus include social proof. Keep in mind, all of these should include social proof. You should always have social proof in all abandonment flows, or at least in a large amount of them, because these people need to like be given something to get over that hump, and seeing words from people that aren't your brand, other people that actually bought the products, helps them a lot in actually getting over that finish line of making the purchase. And also, if you can use like actual images of the people or images that they took of their products or videos, that helps out a lot too, because it just increases the trust in that review. And then maybe in email 2 of these flows, we just focus on a specific objection again. Now, remember, that objection might be a little bit different at this stage than it is in the browse abandonment stage. Like for Dr. Squatch as an example, let's choose one of these scents. Oh, there's a whole pack. All right, let's add this whole thing to our cart. And now, let's say you're at the cart stage right here. There are a lot of things that could possibly be objections just by looking at this from the customer's perspective. So like, for example, let me see here. Maybe I'm confused on this. You know, maybe I need more education there, and that needs to be brought up to me again in the abandonment flow and how this like free shipping thing works. Now keep in mind, it might seem very clear and straightforward, but you have to really remind consumers of how things actually work, because for the most time consumers just need second reminders about things, because they're not like you as a brand owner think that everyone thinks on the same level of thinking as you, but many consumers do not. So that's one example. Another thing people might have like an objection about is like, you know, the subscribe and save. Like they didn't realize they choose subscribe and save, so maybe you have to clarify like what the terms are of subscribe and save. Just as a couple examples. Now overall, obviously Dr. Squatch does a great job of this. Other brands, there might be a lot more questions that pop up at that stage in the buying experience, but that's just to give you a quick like overview. Now I want to quickly touch on the opt-in form. So the steps that we like to take here is an email opt-in, an SMS opt-in, and then a success page. Now, what you can test is a question page to begin with, or we can call it like a micro commitment test. So question page. That question page is essentially just going to ask like, you know, you've unlocked 10% off. Do you want to claim it right now? And then it'll say like yes or no. Or like, do you want 15% off your order? Yes, no. And then people are obviously going to click yes, and then that brings them to the email stage. Now, you would think that hurts conversions because it like increases friction by adding another step. But every time we've tested it, the micro commitment actually performed better. So it's something that I would highly encourage you to test for yourself. All right, so those were days 2 to 5 spent on the copywriting. Now we've got days 6 to 12 to focus on the designs and the revisions on the designs. So obviously you're going to be designing each email that we already went over, but I want to give you a few like pointers for design. So the main like I would say categories of design are going to be your header sections, your below the fold sections, buttons, transitions, and then I'll give a few pointers on lifestyle imagery, and we'll dive into those. So when it comes to header sections in e-commerce email marketing, you want to really just like paint the picture of the whole email in that header section, and you want to include a button in the header section in 90% of cases. There's very rare scenarios where you don't want to have a button in the header section, but for most cases, just assume you should always have a button in that header section. And then typically what we'll like to include like a lifestyle image or just some image that makes sense with the overall theme of that email. And in your abandonment flows specifically, the headline should be painting the picture of what's actually, you know, like in the cart. So it'll say like, like many brands will use kind of like generic copy, like, oh, you forgot this, whatever. But you can, I would encourage you to get a lot more creative with it. We like to mix it up with a lot of different headlines. Let me give you a few examples. So here's one header section example from one of our existing clients where we kind of like to frame this with, like they left some items in their cart. We want to make that decision easier, so we're giving them this discount. And keep in mind, if you are giving a discount in the flow, which many brands like to do to encourage that purchase, make that like the headline of everything. Like everything should be counting down the days until that discount expires, and that should be like a theme of the email. And you should be adding in last chance reminders for those as well. Now, below the fold sections. So below the fold sections are mostly going to be where you're going to like handle those objections or include the social proof or highlight specific products, whatever it is that you're doing. Below the fold is where that's going to happen. And I mean, when it comes to design, you really just want to make sure it's clean and organized. Like you don't want the stuff to look messy. You don't want it to look like a generic Klaviyo setup. You want it to be clean, organized, and easy to digest because most people are not going to scroll through the whole email. But those that do, you want to make sure it's easy for them to do that. So you want to make sure that your below the fold sections are just nice, organized. Each section is like easy to digest, and it's not like just a block of copy that's like hard for someone to even read. Next is buttons. So one quick tip with buttons is that they should always pop out. So let me show you a quick example of that. So as an example, we're going back to that same client for the Cyber Monday email we made for them. And you can see right here, those green buttons pop out so much and they're all consistent. Like even if I zoom out, all that pops out is those green buttons. So you always want to make sure that your buttons pop and you want them to be large. Do not like fall into the trap of having like tiny little buttons. The bigger the buttons are, the better they perform almost always. All right, now transitions. It's pretty simple. Like sometimes your transitions will just be like a strict cutoff line. Sometimes we like to do like fading effects or like an image that's overlaying the section and then it's a different color behind the image. Just as a few examples, you just want to make sure that it's not like messy. That's really as simple as it gets. Then lifestyle imagery. I added this in there because we've almost always found, and anytime we test like lifestyle photos versus just product photos, the lifestyle photos almost always outconvert. So include lifestyle photos as often as you can, and if you can, include them with your products. If you have like photo shoots of your products with people like holding them and stuff like that. Now that caps off the design stage. You've got a full 6 days to get that done before day 12. And then days 13 and 14 is going to be the final text setup and launch. All right, so now to wrap up with this final text setup and launch, I essentially just want to give you the flow filters that you're going to have to use when building these out in Klaviyo, because it's extremely important to have the correct flow filters. Otherwise, this will not work properly for you. So this is a quick image of the browse abandonment flow build out. Now, essentially, you're going to have a trigger. That trigger is going to be viewed product. So as soon as someone views a product, they enter the flow. But then you have flow filters, which I believe these are called profile filters now, if I remember right. They're not called flow filters anymore. But nevertheless, the filters. You want to make sure that these people have started checkout 0 times since starting the flow, added to cart 0 times since starting the flow, they haven't been in the flow in the last 30 days, and they placed an order 0 times since starting the flow. So these bottom two and this top one are the most important. Now, has not been in the flow in the last 30 days. You can change that number of days. Like we change that around a lot. Sometimes this will be 7 days for us. Sometimes it'll be like 2 weeks. You can play around with that. It's essentially just like if someone gets into this flow once and then they go back and browse a product again without adding it to their cart, how long do you want there to be before they can get into this flow again and receive the same content? That's essentially what this part of the filter is for. And then, of course, you'll have your time delay, because if you have like an hour, 15-minute time delay, like in this example, then it'll take an hour 15 for them to basically decide if they're going to add it to the cart. If they add it to their cart anytime before this time delay is finished, then they'll leave the flow, because obviously they added to their cart, and that would cancel out, like that would default them from continuing on because they added to their cart and they failed this filter. Then you're going to have your email, other time delays, emails, etc. Abandoned cart, similar structure, but now we're removing that added to cart piece because that's now the trigger. And now if they checkout started 0 times since starting this flow, place order 0 times since starting this flow, excuse what I said before, we keep the added to cart in there because if they add to cart again, we want them to like restart the flow. rather than like getting canceled out of it. So that's about it for this. Again, you can add the same filter here that they've not been in the flow in the last X amount of days if you'd like. Typically, we'll have it on sometimes, we'll have it off sometimes. It just depends on the brand. And then you have your time delay. Now, this is an old photo. Keep in mind, we usually do a shorter time delay. We usually do like an hour or two instead of 4 hours, sometimes even like 30 minutes. That tends to perform best. But the concept remains the same. Abandoned checkout, similar thing. They enter the flow when they start their checkout. And then the placed order, 0 times since starting this flow. And then they've not been in the flow in the last 7 days. It's just what we used for the filter in this example. Then again, you have your time delays and your emails below that. Now, obviously, you would span this out longer than 2 emails. This is just an example to show you the filters. And that's about it. Hopefully this is valuable to you. If it was, drop a comment below and let me know. Leave a like in the video if you like this stuff. Now, if you're an e-commerce brand and you want this exact type of thing built out for your brand, we will gladly come in and honor the exact same thing. We'll build out all 4 of these core flows and your opt-in form in just 14 days. We'll do all that for just a one-time payment. If you want to like learn more about that, learn all the details of how that would work, I'm going to leave the first link in the description. Will be an explainer video on this exact offer and how we'll do it for you, what the price is, what the guarantee is, all that type of stuff. So click on that if you're interested. Otherwise, I will talk to you soon. Hope you found this valuable.